Warning: the views and beliefs in the following program does not reflect the views of Boom Broadcasting. We give full creative control to our creators and do not believe in cancel culture. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey there, everyone. This is the man behind the mic. I'm Michael Davis, and if you guys understand what Boom Broadcasting is, it's more than just sports. It's more than just wrestling. We give everything to you guys. There's a TV show review podcast, but you guys know this particular show on the channel isn't about promoting Boom. It's about talking about life, and it's about talking about the real stuff. And I've had the opportunity to share some really personal stuff here on the channel, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about stuff going on. Now, of course, I went to the weight room revival this past week, which was really, really, really nice. Um, and then we talked about being thankful. We talked about gratitude and the importance and the significance of that. And I want to cover more of that on next week's episode as we get closer and closer to Thanksgiving, because I think that's really appropriate to talk about. Today, I want to talk about something that necessarily didn't take over my week this week, but it has taken over my weeks in the past. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize it's not just me. And that is the topic of burnout. That is very easy for not only myself, but I think other people to find themselves in a burnout. And to give some context on my work journey, um, and I also want to give some tips as well, uh, in terms of how to handle burnout. And I would love to see comments in the section right here too of how do you guys handle burnout as well. And so I kind of want to talk about what burnout is. uh, it's known as the state of complete mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion, and this could become through very various different things. um, it could happen through a multitude of things happening in your life, either personally or professionally. And there's symptoms. There's a website called Darling Downs where I'm getting some of this information from, and there's symptoms of, like, you know sense of failure, sense of self doubt, losing satisfaction, losing motivation, um, feeling detached. And these are all like emotional symptoms. And through your behavior, you can see it through, like, if you're being more isolated or withdrawn, you're procrastinating a little bit more. There may be some outbursts of losing your top, losing your cool, um, using other things to cope through certain burnout. But this could also lead to a lot of physical symptoms, headaches, fatigue, um, changing your appetite or sleep in an unhealthy way, or, getting sick, getting worn down, feeling tired. And this is what burnout has been categorized as. And it's very easy in this day and age to get burned out. Uh, so some of my prior history was I was homeschooled for high school. And so I would get my work done in 2 hours, 2.5 hours sometimes, and have the rest of the day to myself. I could spend it playing video games. I could spend it watching sports radio. That's how I found out I want to do this broadcasting gig. I I was able to write. I was able to fancy book matches. If you know anything about that, if you're my wrestling people, appreciate you guys. I had ample amount of time to fulfill myself versus working. I didn't work in high school. My first job came actually at a summer camp. And summer camp, that means I instantly went from, not doing anything. And then I went to the community college, and so I'm learning how to balance some work and homework, papers, tests, quizzes, getting some friendships and learn how to balance those. And then camp was a 24/6 gig. I can't tell you how much it went from 0 to 100, but I loved it. I was energized off of it. I fed off of that energy that camp gave and applied it to myself, and that's where I became more extroverted than I had been in the past. And over the course of several years, I'm considered myself an extrovert versus being more introverted. But when I started at camp back in 2017, I truly felt like I didn't stop because I wouldn't take a week off like a lot of counselors would towards the end of the camp time. They got tired, whatever. They wanted to get a week or two break before school started, and I totally understand that. That was a great way of probably helping them not get burned out. Well, I would end camp one day and I'd go to school the next, and I would repeat that cycle constantly and was just go, go, go. My first semester at App, I ran myself into the ground, not only academically, but physically. I remember getting sick a few times. I remember my grades significantly dropping because I was doing too much. I was rushing a oxymoron, if you will, a Christian fraternity. I was, trying to get involved with the radio station. I was trying to get involved with extracurricular activities. I was trying to get involved in a church. I was trying to get involved with my roommates and my friend group. I was trying to come back home as much as I could to see my family. There was so much that went into that first semester that just crapped me out, without a better way to say it. And right after that, I go to camp and do the same thing over and over and over again. Um, just not really having a rest or not really having a break. I found that when I did get a break, for example, uh, Christmas break, you wouldn't be in school, you wouldn't have camp, other than, one weekend, December. And I would just have 2 or 3 weeks where I was just so dormant. Like I was like, maybe picking up, bad habits of, being lazy. And I was just in my bed and, just let the days waste away. And I didn't realize that was myself coping with burnout. And then when you try to get back in the swing of things, it takes you a few weeks to get back into the groove when you come back from like a Thanksgiving break or a Christmas break. Well, I was go, 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 go. Um, while I was at camp, I picked up a radio show, a radio gig, and I had picked up a podcast and I picked up another podcast. So I was doing at least 3 to 4 shows a week on top of camp, which was a 24/6 job, on top of trying to stay involved in a local church. And there was so much going on that I just didn't stop. Well, and I've shared a little bit of this story before, but uh, towards my last summer at camp, I had gotten COVID and was out for a week and a half, and start looking for a new job. And then August was pretty pretty crazy because I went from doing everything to doing nothing, especially when I went in the hospital. And it's like going from 100 to going to 0. And you're pretty much forced there when something like that happens. That happened last August. And, pretty much the whole fall, I was laying in bed. That was much of my fall months. Mentioned, last week talking about how Nakia prayed over me at the weight room revival a year ago. That started helping get me back. And then, honestly, when January hit and I had the opportunity to pick up my wrestling podcast again, um, to start, being on the Cat Cave a little bit more with Ryan and Shannon, I I didn't know. Like, I didn't know how much I could handle. I didn't know because I went from 100 to 0, and I didn't wanna go back to 100. I didn't want to because I didn't know physically if my body or my health could handle it or take care of it. And through encouragement, like, I slowly got integrated into doing stuff, and then I found a, job here locally that I could put some part-time hours into. I was doing a small group, and then we start Boom, and Boom really went back to 100 because especially trying to launch something from scratch, and we had some tremendous support, um, over 100 subs before we ever dropped a video, in a week. That is absolutely nuts. That is absolutely crazy. And, about 4 months in, we're, fastly approaching 500, which is awesome. It is so cool. But imagine, you know, wanting to, have something good, wanting to deliver on those 100 people who put faith in us before we ever dropped a video to, my team. I, I wanted to make sure this was going to be solid and going to be a long-term solution for people talking about their passions, whether that's sports, whether that's wrestling, whether that's a show like this talking about life and encouraging people, whatever the case would be. I wanted it to be good, and I wanted it to be sustainable. And so went quickly from 0 to maybe like 40 to now 100, just working that part-time job, writing for Fans First, launching Boom, on top of doing all the shows that I was doing, guest starring on some others like the Nightcap and those of that sort. It was a lot quickly in July. It was a lot in August, and it was almost like flying by the seat of my pants. And it doesn't feel like it stopped until the hurricane came through Western North Carolina, and it kind of forced us to stop because I didn't have power. Several other content creators didn't have power, and we had a really good team at that point of, Sean, of Mike, and several others who had like, "Hey, I can pick this up," Wayne, Jason, Aaron, all those guys. And if I forgot you in that list, I'm sorry. I do not forget you in general. Uh, but they picked it up, and they helped when, this part of the country was hit pretty hard, and we didn't have power and we couldn't record, and it was helpful. And I felt like I was forced. I mean, it's getting dark around 7:30. You have no power, you have no electricity, you have no heat. We were very grateful in the grand scheme of things. Very, very grateful. My family is safe. The house was safe. We just lost stuff in the fridge and freezer. That's it. That's it. But it was very significant that other people hopped in and helped. But it forced me to, kind of take a chill pill. And then, you get back from the hurricane, you're just trying to find that groove. And I feel like we're still trying to find that groove, not only myself but others. Not just with the channel, but just in life in general, because we got hit. And when we got hit, it was, whoa, something needs to be done different, if you will. And so that's caused us to have a little bit of burnout. Um, and I was trying to think, because I do enjoy the stuff we do here. I do enjoy going to work. I do enjoy hanging out with friends. I do enjoy small groups. I do enjoy going to the local church. I do enjoy spending time with my family. But when you start looking at my Google Calendar. I used to not have a calendar. I would just, okay, feel like doing this today, let me do it. And I had to create a Google Calendar around July, to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything because maybe I overcommitted myself in some ways, because there was a lot of pressure to, make sure we did this right, to make sure that I didn't drop any of my other obligations. Um, and so I've put together a list, after some research and stuff that helps me, prevent burnout, and if not prevent burnout, then best manage it because I feel like we really need to do that. Number one thing is take time off, vacay. I made jokes about Mike with the nightcap when he was he was starting some new things in his life, and you know he needed a break, and I could see it, and he was going hard. Mike probably worked harder than anybody else. It's probably even more than me because he was live streaming late at night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes pay per views. He would sometimes live stream like 6 times a week, which is tough on you. It's really really tough, and didn't miss a beat. Would do it late in the night for at least an hour, sometimes two. He wouldn't shortchange anything. I really appreciate that, but I could see he needed a vacay, and I pushed for it, I pushed for it, and then he's like, "Okay, I'll take you up on that." And it was really good. And he's also a guy who allows me to take time off when I wanted to go on a beach trip for my birthday after what happened last year. He handled everything behind the scenes. He handled producing, he handled uploading videos, he handled he handled everything while I was gone. He handled the social medias. I didn't have to worry about anything. And what gets you in trouble about worrying stuff is when you overcommit yourself. Um, you overextend yourself. Um, and so I would say setting healthy boundaries and learning how to say no. I've had to turn down a couple opportunities that have come up to me in the last couple months because I'm just like, hey, I legitimately, I'll show them my Google Calendar and I'm like, I have no time. But also, I don't have the mental capacity to pick up another part-time job or pick up something else like that. And it's really helped because I'm like, I'll look back in a month or two and be like, yeah, that would have been very helpful financially, but would that have done more damage in the long run? And I really want to take that in. Um, Obviously, you guys know I am a Christian. I have a faith, um, and so what helps me is taking that time to pray, to get in the Bible, and read certain stuff, or get plugged in with a local community or a local church. Really helps because I feed off other people's energy. I'm a really relationship driven person, and so getting their energy helps, but also refueling me. And one practice I've made is every time I go to work, it's about a 30-minute drive for me to work every day. And I will use that to pray. I will use that to listen to worship music if I want to, and just really like pour into myself because you can't pour into someone else with an empty cup. So that's really helpful. And priorities too. I've had to really understand and focus on what are my priorities. I have an obligation to Boom. I have an obligation to my family. I have an obligation to my friends. I have an obligation to myself. And this is what I think people will forget is they'll feel all these other things. I have an obligation to fans first. I have an obligation to this one. I have an obligation to my part-time job. But we think of all our obligations and the tasks we need to do, and we forget, oh, what about me? What refuels me? What recharges me? And so Putting all those important things in priorities and important categories and distributing the right amount of time for those is really helpful, but also leaving room for myself. Like, there are spots in my Google Calendar where it says free. Now, free is very important because this sometimes turns into work, but I try my very best to be like, "Hey, I don't need to actively be doing something right now." Or if I get done with all my tasks, I can play a video game. I can watch wrestling. I can watch sports. I can call up my friend and check on him and be like, "Sup, bro? What you into? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?" I can go out and grab me a bite to eat. Just something that helps refuel me and make sure I'm pouring into myself so I don't get burned out or start feeling empty is really important. And so I am a big advocate, and this is why we started Boom, of doing or talking about what you're passionate about. And so I love doing what I'm passionate about, like video games or wrestling or sports or spend time with friends, like those activities that energize me versus drain from me are really, really important. I love that. Um, I absolutely love figuring out how to do those. Um, and so that's part of how I handle burnout. Uh, not to say not to say I never get burned out, and I probably will. Who knows? But I really want to practice this, especially as we get in the holiday season. Of hey, it is okay to take time with your family. It is okay to take time for yourself. Um, there is a healthy balance between not being lazy and not being overproductive. I think there is a nice balance in the middle of, hey, I can still get my obligations done, or I can take a step back if I need to, but really having a sense of where you're at in life at that moment that can better help you navigate those situations. I think that is very, very, very important in regards to um, staying afloat. Because again, I read all those symptoms at the beginning from that website, Darling Downs Health. I read all those symptoms, and I don't want to make life worse or harder on myself because I'm burning myself to the ground, and now I'm getting sick, and now it makes it harder to actually produce it. I'm constantly trying to uh, be on the hamster wheel and chase and just run in circles and not really get anywhere. So I'm excited for learning how to handle burnout and taking time for myself. Um, and so maybe it will be, you know, instead of doing 8 shows a week, maybe it is, doing 7 or doing 6. Maybe it's, delegating, certain tasks to certain people who I would trust, and let them take some ownership. Maybe it's hey, instead of working you know 30 hours this week, maybe I'll only work 25 hours, and take some time to get in nature, go on a drive, and really just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Now, Grant, that is not why out of pocket was a little lower this week. Monday I was out of town. Monday, yeah. I've been out of town a lot this week. Yeah. Monday I was out. Wednesday and Thursday I was out of town. And then Friday, of course, we had those technical difficulties, which did not help me mentally. That was so frustrating. I'll be honest, that was very frustrating. I was so excited for yesterday's out of pocket. But hopefully we'll make that up to you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this show, and I would love to start a conversation in the comments or in my messages or texts. I have several people talk to me all the time uh, about how this this series has helped them, and that's why I want to continue doing this show and talking about the real stuff because that was a huge factor in me starting Boom Broadcasting with a wonderful team. So if you guys would like to start a conversation, and you know, I never have all the answers. Obviously, as a guy who experiences burnout himself, uh, I don't have all the answers. So I would love to start a conversation with this episode about how we can better support each other and make sure we're not burning out or running ourselves into the ground and still being able to provide and being able to be passionate about what we're doing. I think is really important. So guys, thank you for so much for watching the man behind the mic. Again, this isn't to promote any of the Boom Broadcasting stuff. This is to talk about life and talk about real stuff. But if you guys want to support the team, that's awesome. They're doing really great content and would really appreciate your support as well. But guys, this has been the man behind the mic. Next week we'll more than likely uh talk about being thankful and being gracious and grateful, thankful, heading into the Thanksgiving holiday. So guys, appreciate y'all, and this has been the man behind the mic.